was 18 years old, like a nice Jewish boy, I was in Japan getting 2 black belts in judo and teaching knife fighting and learning about Buddhism. I thought that was so interesting. They said the whole world's an illusion, it's nothing. Don't move. After a few years, I got so interested, I went back to America, and I went to Arizona thinking to join a monastery. That could be the answer to life. You have a begging bowl. If food comes, you eat. If it doesn't come, you don't eat. So what? If you're tired, you lay down. And wherever you walk, you just count your steps. No more problems. But after a while, I said, you know, I'm a Jewish guy. I should get a job. So I went to a corporation downtown where you could make the most money. And the guy said, gee, we'd like to hire you. But tell me, what college have you graduated from? College? I barely got out of high school. I'm sorry, we can't hire you. So I went to the local university, and I said, I'd like to get a degree, please. And she said, in what? I said, in getting a job. And she said, okay, you take these courses, you get the degree, you get the job. I took the courses, I got the degree, I got 2 degrees. I went back, and the guy said, you got the job. Now, what do you know? I became a financial consultant in Phoenix, Arizona, making a lot of money. After a year or 2, the boss came into my room and he said, you know, you're making a lot of money now, you have to buy a new house. I said, why? I already have a house. You don't understand, you have to cooperate. You're making a lot of money, you have to buy a bigger house. Okay. So I shopped around, I went out to a place called Paradise Valley. I found a home designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And I was about to buy the house and write a check to pay for the entire house. No mortgage. That's how much money we had in those days. But then I stopped and said, what's going to happen next year when I make more money? Am I going to have to buy another house? And then another house, and another house? Is that the purpose of life? Didn't make sense, but it's what everybody said, yeah. I did the only thing possible. I became depressed. I sat in my office every day, seeing my clients, yelling at everybody, drinking 18 cups of coffee a day, and smoking a pack of cigarettes. Making money. One day I looked out of my office, and I saw some funny-looking guys sitting on the sidewalk, barefooted, dirty, long hair, beards. It was the 60s. I went out to them, I said, they were laughing, and I wasn't laughing. I went up to them and said, hey, can you tell something to me? They said, yeah, man. They look like I came from the moon. I said to them, how is it I have everything and I'm miserable? And you have nothing and you're happy. How do you get happy? He said, it's easy, man. Just take some of this and twist it up and smoke it. You'll get happy. Boy, did I get happy. I was floating on the ceiling. I thought that was the best stuff I ever came in the world. I was laughing so hard, my jaws hurt. But after an hour, I came back down. And now I felt worse than I did before because I knew you could be happy and I wasn't. So I went back to the hippie. I said, it stopped. What happened? He said, you got to smoke it again. So I was like a yo-yo, 8 times a day, going up and down, up and down. Well, that can't be the answer to life. So after a couple of weeks of being a yo-yo, I went back to the hippie. I said, this doesn't work. I don't want to come down anymore. He said, yeah, try some of these. Maybe you won't. Well, they were so little, they couldn't do nothing, right? So I took all 3 of them. Whoa. I woke up 3 days later, flat on my back in a public park in the middle of the night that was being irrigated. And the water's coming up over my body. I don't want to be crazy! And I start running through the park. A couple days later, I came back down to semi-normal state. I remember seeing something then that was so interesting. You won't get it because you're not in that condition, but I recognized the world is round. Oh, you don't understand? You know what that means? It's all connected. I can go anywhere I want. I'm not stuck in Phoenix, Arizona, being a financial consultant. I can go discover my purpose in the world. And one day I cashed out. I went from driving my Lincoln Continental limousine to standing on the side of the road hitchhiking. Now, when you're hitchhiking, when you're stoned, it's great because you don't care if a car comes or not. Everything's fine. And when a guy does stop, you wonder, well, I wonder what he wants. Oh yeah, you remember you jump in the car, and the guy asks you this heavy question, where are you going? Oh man, if I knew that word. Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Up north. Got to Northern California. It's very beautiful. Huge trees, almost as big as this room. I was sitting up on one of these trees, looking down at the people living in the village below, and I was laughing at the people in the village. You know that 25% of the Americans take some kind of pill to make them feel normal? What kind of life is that? But I said, what's the difference between that and me? Here I am smoking a joint, and there they are taking a pill. Out go the drugs. What's the first thing in the 60s after drugs? Health food. But not like you might think. First you start with the 8-week watermelon fast. For 8 weeks, all you eat is watermelon. That'll clear you out. Then you start eating food, and you eat the tomatoes that grow on the left side of the plant, on the left side of your mouth. And the ones that grow on the right side of the plant, you eat on the right side of your mouth. About this time, I read a magazine about organic gardening ashram that was opening in Mexico. Oh, that could be a good idea. I could see myself wearing a bathing suit, working in the garden, growing carrots. Maybe that's what the purpose of life is, bringing organic food into the world. So I hitchhiked down to Mexico. I meet the little old lady who's running the ashram. She takes a liking to me, and she says, come here, I want to show you this film of my guru in India. Okay. I look at the film. The guy was amazing. In those days, he had 5 million devotees. When he died, thank God, a few years ago, he had 60 million. Why was he so popular? He could look at you and say, what do you like diamonds? Yeah, you like diamonds? He'd wave his hand, and a diamond would come out of the air, and he'd give you the diamond. You like books? He'd wave his hand, and a book would come out of the air, he'd give him the book. I said, that's pretty cool, that guy can do that, but I can do the same thing. You want a diamond? Here's a check, go buy a diamond. I was running away from materialism, and here's a guy making more of it. But I made one big mistake. I thought, since that guy can control the physical universe spiritually, he must be able to tell me how to live my spiritual life. Big mistake. I went to sleep that night in Tecate, Mexico, out in the wilderness, on the ground. And in the middle of the night, I had a vision. And this guru, Yamak Shumo's eyes came to me, and I started going up and up into outer space. And the sun went by, and the moon went by, and stars started going by. I freaked out. I came back, I said, wow, I don't want to be crazy. Wow, if this happens from looking at a movie of this guy, can you imagine what would happen if I look in his eyes? I know what I'll do. I'll go to India. I'll be there for one day. I'll look in his eyes. He's so powerful. He'll blow me away. There'll be nothing left but sparkles. I got up in the morning. I packed my little blanket roll. I got an airplane. I went to India. I made my way to South India. From there, the bus and the train. Finally found the guy's ashram in the middle of the desert. A couple little white buildings in the middle of the desert. And sitting in front of this building, in the middle of nowhere, are 5,000 Indians. Apparently, if you give away diamonds in India, you're very popular. So I went up to knock on the door. They said, you can't do that. He's a very important person. You have to sit here. And he comes out twice a day, and he'll pick the people for the interview and talk to you. Okay, I'll sit there because I know he's going to pick me first. After all, I came all the way from California. They came only from New Delhi. I came for spiritual reasons. They came for physical reasons. Surely he's going to pick me first. So I sat there and I waited and I waited and waited. This is something you learn to do very good in India. Wait and wait. And finally the door opened. Everybody sat up straight, became quiet. Some people smoothed out the sand in front of them to encourage him to come by. And the Yamak Shumo comes out and he walks right up to me like I knew he would. And walks right by. Didn't even look at me. He's busy. He'll get me in the afternoon. So I waited and waited and waited. Long day. Late afternoon, the door opens, everybody sits up straight, and he walks up to me and walks right by. Didn't even look at me. Oh man, I came all the way from California to be here for one day, and the guy didn't even look at me. I'll wait one more day. Next day, the same thing happened. Next day, the same thing. 2 weeks, I'm sitting here all day long, and twice a day he comes out and doesn't even look at me. Then after 2 weeks, I was sitting there, and in the middle of the day, all of a sudden, the 5,000 people started screaming. Running all over the place. I grabbing the kids, stuff falling over. I didn't know what was going on. They're yelling in Hindi. Telugu. I looked up. The Yamak Shamo had a pet elephant. And this day, the pet elephant went crazy and started charging the crowd. Now you got a wild elephant charging 5,000 people. What do you got to do quick? No? Run. Which direction?
Away from the elephant.
That was my mistake. I sat there and I said, my God in heaven, someone's going to get killed here. And I jumped up and I ran up to the front of the charging elephant. I said, stop! And the elephant stopped. I was amazed. I remember saying, what do you do with a stopped elephant? Just then, the Yamak Shamo heard all the excitement. He came out on his balcony and he saw that I stopped this crazy elephant, so he thought I was an interesting person, so he invited me into his house. So I'm pushing past the crowd, I go inside, and he's standing there and he's pushing up his sleeve. He's going to materialize something for me. He said, what do you want? I looked him in the eye and I said, freedom. He said, come move into my house. I went back, I got my blanket roll. I went into his house, he put me up on the roof. Now I'm sitting on the roof all day, nothing happened. All night, nothing happened. There was a low wall about this high. I was sitting there with my back on the wall, my legs sticking out in front of me. And early in the morning, he comes up to me and he's angry with me. We don't sit here like that, you have to fold your legs. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So with a lot of effort, I take and I fold my legs, like in India. He says, no, you have to bring the leg over one more time, like a lotus. Lotus, it looked like a pretzel to me. And the guy left. And I got cramps in my legs trying to figure out how to get my legs to fold like a lotus. So I had nothing to do there all night long and all day, so I practiced. I exercised, I stretched my legs, and early the next morning I happened to be sitting there with my legs folded like a pretzel. The Yamak Shamo comes up to me and says, oh, that's very good, but you have to have your arms like this. Oh, okay, and he went like that, and he walked by. Now I got to figure out what you do here. The next day he came by and said, yes, but your fingers have to be like this. And next day, every day, breathe up this side of your nose, down this side, up this side, down day after day after day. I sat 5 months in his house. After 5 months, he called me in for an interview. Very important interview with some big politicians from New Delhi. I was sitting on the ground in the house in front of him, and he told a story about something I had seen. But he didn't tell it like it happened. He told it like it would look good for him. So I said, that's not true what you're saying. That didn't happen like that. You're lying. How dare you call me a liar? I have 5 million devotees. Who do you think you are? I said, I don't care what you have. If you're going to be a liar, I can't trust you. Goodbye. I got up and walked off. I ended up on the west coast of India. There's a broken down hut, about the size of 2 of these tables on the beach. I'm sitting in this hut, doing the exercise I learned while I was with the Yamak Shamo. And now I'm meditating 10 hours a day. Every 3 days I'd walk to the local village to buy food, rice and wheat, flour. I come back and I sit there and meditate. Once in the evening I walk up and down at sundown, up and down the beach, and the rest of the time I would sit in the hut doing these exercises. After 5 months of meditating 10 hours a day, in the middle of the meditation, there was a mystical voice. The voice said, that's what you get for letting a realtor handle it for you. Who said that? There's no one here. I must have imagination. I went back to meditating. But then the visions started to come. And when the visions came, they were so powerful, they knocked me over. I come back and meditate again until the next one came. Well, after 5 months of sitting there, I said, you know what? I'm not helping anybody doing this. I'm going to go out in the world. I took my blanket roll, put it on my back, and I went out into South India. Once I got past the first village where they were used to seeing me, and walked into the next village, when I walked in, the Indians bowed down to the ground. I said, what's going on now? Oh, I know what it is. The Indian books say they should treat foreigners like God. They never saw a foreigner in this village before. But then a woman came running up to me with a baby in her arms. She said, my baby's blind. Please heal my baby. What are you talking about? Then they all jumped on my feet trying to kiss my feet. I freaked out. I ran away and they were chasing after me outside the village. I got to the far end of the village. There was an ashram, another guru is camped there. I ran in there to get away from the people. The guru sees me, he falls on his face, he says, here, you take the ashram, you be the guru here. I said, you're just trying to make me into a psychiatrist for your village. No, thank you. And I went out the back door and I kept walking. So now I'm walking in South India with no direction. If the wind would blow my hair this way, I'd go that way. If I was tired, I'd lay down. If I was hungry, somebody happened to come put food in my hand. Well, after about 5 months of wandering like this, I said, you know, I'm not helping anybody doing this. I don't even speak the language. I'll go back to America, at least I speak the language. Make a long story short, I'm back in America in a VW van with 5 or 6 people traveling through the back roads of America. Some very funny things happen. After about 5 months of traveling in this VW van, a mystical power came on me. And the power made me feel very good and started spinning me in circles, physically spinning me in circles. Then it spun me, started moving me down the road. I stopped talking. At this point, I hadn't spoken in 5 or 6 weeks, not a word. But I made hand signs if I wanted something. So I motioned to my friends, take the van and go. I'm going to find out where God is leading me. One of my friends came with me, and I start spinning down the road with him walking behind me, down the hill, over the valley, out onto the freeway in Southern California. Now you got to picture this, 2 guys standing on the freeway. I look at the road, you couldn't walk to the end, let alone spin to the end of it, so I decided to hitchhike. Now who's going to pick up 2 guys like this hitchhiking? Barefooted, long hair, tied in a knot on top of my head, wrapped in a tablecloth, looking at my nose, spinning down the road. Who's going to pick up 2 people like that? No problem. They came from the other side of the freeway, turned around and came back and said, I saw the light coming out of your head. Where do you want to go? I pointed that way. 3 days later, we're in Manhattan. I'm spinning up Manhattan. We get as far as 86th Street in Central Park West, and there's a park bench there, so I sit down on the park bench to rest. And after the rest, I tried to get up, and I couldn't get off the bench. So I motioned to my friend. God said, here, I can't get off the bench. We sat there all day, nothing happened. All night, nothing happened. Early the next morning, a guy comes up and says, it feels so good here, do you mind if I sit down? The guy sat down. Next day, another guy. Next day, another guy. A few days later, I look up and there's 125 people sitting there in front of me. And people come up and say, what's going on here? And they say, shh, don't you feel it? Wow, what is it? Allen Ginsberg, I don't know if you know who these people are, was laying on his face worshiping me. Ram Dass was washing my feet. Peter Max is painting my picture. And 3 television cameras are coming at me, trying to climb over the people, asking, what is this power we feel coming from you? And I wasn't talking. I sat in the corner. When it rained, they gave us plastic sheets to cover ourselves. When it got cold, they gave us blankets. I had nothing better to do, so I started telling stories with my hand signs. I invented a hand sign language. Anybody could get it right away. Watch, you can get it right now. You want to know what I think. Do you understand? Understanding comes easy. The next day, the language schools came to the corner to record the new language. It's not every day somebody makes up a new language. I'm sitting on the corner with nothing to do, so I start telling a story about a place called Mountain Meadows. Mountain Meadows is a fictitious place where 40 people are going to come together to live like brothers and sisters, a loving spiritual life. After 5 months of sitting on the corner, somebody drives up with an empty school bus. All the seats are removed and there's a big platform in the back. He pulls up and he says, we call that place, that mystical place, Mountain Meadows. He said, let's go to Mountain Meadows. So I stood up to see what I was supposed to do. The power came on me and spun me onto the bus. 65 people got on the bus and off we went out of Manhattan and ended up in Panama. You know where Panama is? Didn't work out, I came back. They sold the bus, they came back. I'm sitting in the corner again. Somebody comes up with another bus, spin onto the bus, off we go to Acapulco, Doesn't work out, come back. Somebody gives me 80 acres upstate New York, outside Ithaca, with a big pond. We go up there, the place is beautiful. So we start making little huts. Now I have my own hut. It was 6 feet across, but I could do whatever I want. I wasn't in front of people. I wasn't hitchhiking down the street. What do I want to do? I want to meditate all day long until I finally go out the top. That's what I started to do. Now, how long could you keep this schedule? I didn't talk for 24 hours a day. I meditated for 23 hours a day. 1 hour a day I would eat and take a shower and visit my friends who were all sitting in a big hut waiting for me. How many days do you think you could do that? 23 hours a day meditate, not talk for 24 hours a day. Tell me. Huh?
I don't know.
How many? Anybody have any idea you could do that?
2 days.
Huh?
2 days.
2 days?
I wouldn't mind living like that, actually.
I did it for over 3 years. I sat there doing that for 3 years. Now, what do you think would happen if somebody would meditate in a hut like that for 3 years, 23 hours a day?
Fall asleep.
You go crazy. I had more voices in my head than you have on your iPod. But these voices were very interesting because they would tell me things that would happen in the future. In 5 minutes, Charlie's going to come. And 5 minutes later, Charlie would come. Wow, pretty interesting voice. What would you do the next time the voice told you something?
Listen to it.
Listen to it. And you know what it said? Bang your head on the wall. Guess what the voice said? Harder. Uh-oh, you're in trouble. At the same time this was happening, somebody left a notice in my bathhouse about Christian healers. Now, Christian healers had a very interesting power. They could lay their hands on people in wheelchairs, and the people would jump out of the wheelchairs. And the Christian healer didn't jump into the wheelchair. So why was I stuck in my chair 23 hours a day, supposedly taking on the karma for my students? You understand my problem? I went out and I visited every Christian healer I could find in America. And I learned how to do that. I went down to the Bowery where the bums were laying there in a pile, and I grabbed one and said, "Get up, you're healed, you can walk." The guy jumped up and said, "I haven't walked in weeks, I'm healed," and walked down the beach. Wherever I'd go, I'd yell at people, "You're healed." So I'm walking down the beaches of Maui, Hawaii. Oh, by the way, when you become a Christian healer, you also get demons. And the demons will follow me down the beach. And I'm yelling at the demons as I go. "Get off me, Satan. Who do you think you are? I bind you." Wherever I went, people were very polite. They all got out of the way. I'm walking down the beach and I said, "You know what? I'm as crazy as I was on the Indian trip. This was no better than that." But there's one thing they say in the Christian Bible. You can either try the commandments, but they're too many and too complicated, or you can have faith in Christianity. I said, I tried faith in Christianity. That didn't work. So let me try the commandments. I took the back of their Bible that they glued on, I ripped it off and threw it away, and everything it said to do in the front, I started to do. For instance, there's one commandment that says you should make fringes on the corners of your garment. Now, I'd never seen these before. I went to the Japanese store that sold wool and linen, and I asked the lady in Maui, "How do you make fringes?" She said, "Tassels." I said, "Yeah, tassels." So she showed me how to make up the tassels. So I went to the beach and I made up a bunch of these tassels. Now, where are you supposed to put them? What? On your corners. So what's this? Corner. So I put one here. I had two here and two here and two here. I look like a couch cover. I had all these fringes all over me. Now there's another commandment. It says you have to take this money, it's Mises Cheney, and it says you have to bind it to your hand. It means take it to Jerusalem and don't spend it on the way. But what's it say in the book? No? Bind it to your. So what was I supposed to do? Exactly. You would have done the same thing. So I took the money and I tied it to my hand. I got on an airplane and I came to Jerusalem. "Are you a widow? Are you an orphan?" And I'd hand out the money. They said, "What are you doing?" I told them, I said, "Don't be crazy. No one's done that for 2,000 years. And what are those things?" I said, "My tzitzits." They said, "They're not kosher." How dare you tell me my citrus aren't kosher? Didn't the Japanese lady show me how to make them? So when I stood by the kotel and I prayed like this, all right, Lord, whatever happens, send me just a holy person because I'm going to say yes to whatever he says. Immediately, the guy came up to me and said, do you want to put on tefillin? I had no idea what he's talking about. Yes, come, I'll help you put them on. Yes. He's putting tefillin on. He sees all the money in my hand. He says, I see you have a lot of money. You should buy some tefillin. Yes. Come, I'll help you buy them. Yes. We get in the cab and off we go. He said, oh, a very famous Rebbe just passed away. We should visit his gravesite. Yes. Off we go to the graveyard. Now there I am standing in the graveyard, looking like a tablecloth with my money tied to my hand, and the chassid saying psalms by the Rebbe's grave. We get back in the cab, we go to Mary Sharim, and we buy tefillin. He says, you're buying tefillin, you should get collars. Yes. You should get tzitzit. Yes. You should get a haircut. Yes. Off to Geula for one of these groovy haircuts. You should go to yeshiva. Yes. 45 minutes from the time I opened my mouth at the kotel, I went to Chassid, to the graveyard, to Mary Sharim, to Geula, to the yeshiva, learning how to daven, and that's how I got started 37 years ago.
Been there, done that. Thank God I'm here now.